Time Shift episode 129. 129 weeks in a row. 0 weeks off. Non-negotiable. Committed. Disciplined. All the things. Big David, I see you on right now. One of the coolest things that we get to do now as my brand continues to ascend and so forth is bring on some of my dearest friends onto the show that I absolutely love. Not that they need us by any means. They're crushing it in their own right. But it's just fun to collaborate with some people that you love. So we're going to bring on Sean in less than 5 minutes. Less than 5. But first, Big Dave, bringing you on right now, you sex octopus. And let's get this party started, baby. Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Reinvention Formula. Love to hear some takeaways. Some juicy nuggets. Big Dave!
What's up?
How you doing, you sex goose?
I'm doing really well, man. How are you?
Doing great. Real good. There's no place in the world I'd rather be. It's one of the things I look forward to most in life is getting together with you every Saturday morning.
No doubt. No doubt. It's 129, so that means
That's
more than 2 years.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty. I remember the one I remember most was the one that I thought I wasn't going to be able to make, which I was in New Orleans. And I think we were out enjoying ourselves with our kids. Marissa was still in school. It was still that long ago. And it was early on.
And there was a loud train in the background?
Yeah, we were on the water and the train. It was 7 a.m. in the morning in New Orleans. I probably got back at like 4 a.m. And I was like, I'd go outside of the hotel, stand in the sunrise there. And then I decided, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm never going to miss.
I love that. And I'm honored to be here with you and do this with you. And God willing, we'll be going for another 70 years. How long is your expectation?
Over 111. So I'm going to live to over 111. So that's at least 56 more years.
Yeah. But in the meantime, we're going to focus on this one and make it the best it's ever been.
129. I want to give a big shout out to Mikey, who had his baby crew. Healthy, happy baby boy.
Who?
Mike Allen, my CEO.
Oh, on your team. Congrats, Mikey. Great job.
Yeah. So, number 3. 2 girls, 1 boy.
Wow. He looks young.
He is young, but he's mature.
Wise beyond his years.
Yeah, for sure. Beyond these 2 years, yeah, right here.
Understood. Before we bring on Sean, I want to ask you this. One thing that I've really discovered myself over the last few years is how powerful being so present and in the moment is, and not letting your mind drift on meetings a couple hours from now or something that was bothering you. Just being so in the moment. It's like the mindfulness is a portal to expansion. I was checking out your content this week, as I always do, non-negotiable, which everybody should be. And you were actually talking about something along the lines of being in the present moment. What are some of the benefits about really being so present in each activity?
What allows you to stay in control of the mindset, the heart set, and the handset. And so if you want to stay on the trajectory of where you think you want to be or better, you are not only wasting time, sucking energy, or diverting your trajectory by focusing in on the past, the fears of the past, the setbacks, failures, mistakes, successes, defining moments, the relative historical events, whatever it may be. And even worse, at least the past is certain and you're allowed to give it a meaning. The future is not certain, and it's hard to give meaning to something that has no certainty. And so most people, they waste their energy, time, emotion, relationships, money in a void of a personal energy suck, a personal energy crisis. One of the biggest ones is when we're not focused in on the activity at hand, the activity we get paid for, the activity we don't, the activity that's planned, the activity that's unplanned, or even our sleep. We're sitting between a very dangerous loss between the present and what we think we want the present to be. And that void between the present and what we think we want the present to be, determinative upon the defining moments of the past and the uncertainty of the future, can create a terrible resistance, void, shortages, obstacles, what's missing, mistakes, etc. So I help people with daily practices pay attention and give intention to the coincidences that we want at the time that they want them. I'll give you a good example. I do a lot with Mike Tannenbaum, former Jets GM, ESPN super analyst, and Mike and I are doing a show called the 33rd Team together, and it'll be on a variety of networks, including Apple, but it's going to be very exciting. It was on there today. You're not going to believe this. Herm Edwards and we just got a deal down in Australia, and he's like, call it luck I'm like, hey, it's not. You've been paying attention and giving intention to building your brand with ESPN all around the world, and it's no accident, no karma. It's literally attention and intention that's created that option and touch of favor. And I want to congratulate Mike for getting that gig down there in Australia. They're doing the Thursday night games for ESPN, which is a pretty big deal because I think he'll be doing the Germany games and the London games. And I'm blessed to have him as a partner of mine as well.
Mike's a good dude. He comes across one way on TV, but I had the honor of meeting him personally at your VIP dinner. He's a good dude.
A great guy, yeah. And I don't know if you caught my TMZ stint this week.
I was about to segue into that. I'm going to bring on Sean right now, who I'm super pumped for. Love this guy very much as a dear friend. But while I'm bringing him on, I wanted to ask you about the TMZ thing and why everybody seems to be attacking you in regards to this new Tom Brady update.
Yeah, it's so good, right? Tom and I sharing the stage. Hey, Sean.
Hey, how's it going?
Tom and I are sharing the stage out of Mexico City, and he did a big Delta deal, and they disguised his endorsement as a strategic advisor to Delta, which I thought was funny because he probably hasn't flown Delta in 20 years. And Eric, the CEO of Delta, was positioning Tom as this great team leader of Delta, as if he's going to be in all the meetings there, like a huddle, telling his team to win the Super Bowl. And you and I both know that it's a great endorsement deal for Tom. Tom's going to do a great job and probably throw in a few inspirational speeches. Hopefully he'll let me tag along like they are. My favorite part was they were asking whether Tom and I, who's the lead in, who's the warm-up act. And so I immediately spoke up. I'm like, dude, I'm the warm-up act for Tom Brady any day of the week. But I just have to admit that both of us are the warm-up act for Chicharito down in Mexico City, because, Tom Brady might be humongous here, but no one's bigger in sports than Chicharito is, the greatest premier soccer player in Mexico City, or Mexico in overall. So, but it's really fun because I told Tom as well after, I was like, dude, I'd much rather be the guy that's the expert talking about you than the guy who all the experts are talking about. So there's that perfect level of fame that you want to be.
Yeah, well, not a bad look to be associated with Tom Brady. So good for you, Dave. That's awesome. I am now the third most handsome cat on this live. Sean, brother, love you, buddy. It's good to see you. How you doing? Where are you calling in from?
Hey, thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate it, guys.
Where are you right now?
I'm actually at my house, my home office.
In Vancouver?
In Vancouver, yeah. I'm just about an hour outside of Vancouver, Maple Ridge.
We're worldwide right now.
We're worldwide.
That's it.
So many places we could take this conversation. For our audience that might not be familiar with Sean, please check him out immediately. Do a deep dive, play catch up. He's so many awesome things going on. I just wanted to hit a couple nuggets right out the gate. One of the pieces of content that you had this week, which I thought was really cool, is sometimes we all find ourselves in a little bit of a rut. We lose a little bit of momentum. We're all human. But one thing that you talked about that you really put an emphasis on when this happens to you is stacking micro wins and attacking small tasks. Tell us what you mean by that and how someone can apply that right now that might be in a rut to climb out.
So it's a lot like what David was actually saying earlier and what you guys were kind of alluding to. A lot of it actually has, in the last couple of years, I've found a bit in stoicism where it comes to just focusing on being in that present, being in that moment. And what happens, and I think the portion that you were watching or whatever I put out at that particular part, I came back from a trip. And I hear this all the time. People go on vacations, and even while they're on vacation, they're excited to get back into work, so on and so forth. But when they show up in the office, they're still kind of in vacation mode. It's hard to kind of get back into that full blown. You've lost that momentum that you had prior to going into it. So for myself, I'm trying to focus and be extremely in the present on what I'm doing right now. Right? And I'm trying to have the best outcome I possibly can right now. And when you start stacking these micro wins, like The famous admiral was saying, make your bed in the morning, or you hit your gym in the morning, or whatever. All of a sudden, you're starting to create this positive flow throughout your day, and you start getting back into that rhythm that you need to be successful in. And so many times, we go on vacation or we get into a rut or any of these different types of situations. And the first thing we do is we allow ourselves to get distracted. We go onto Instagram, we go onto Facebook, we do whatever it takes instead of just doing the small things that will get us that momentum to move forward. So for myself, when I don't feel like doing something, that's the time I know I need to do it the most. Because soon as I overcome that little hill, that battle, that obstacle that's in the way, or whatever you want to call it, soon as that happens, I know I'm going to feel a million times better. And then all of a sudden, everything starts stacking itself up afterwards.
So good. Dave, that reminds me of when you give yourself like a 5-minute rule to go to the gym and then you stay longer.
Yeah, I would say the first 5 minutes suck, but I also have a rule. I'm right-handed, so I say cut your right hand's fingernails first because it's so much harder, right? Like just make a point of telling yourself, I do the more challenging things or the things I don't want to do first. But I think even more importantly, the idea of how any energy exists, it aggregates on itself, it compounds exponentially, and it accelerates, which in the world of progress and behavior are all extremely beneficial. And so when we have these micro wins, we're creating, even if they're smaller, even if it's only 2 minutes a day, it's aggregating. I always say 2 minutes a day is worth more than 2 hours on a Saturday. In fact, I've inversed the mindset when of vacation because I do travel so much and I blend or reconcile activity I get paid for with activity I don't get paid for, activity with associates, activity with family, and even sleep. I vacation every day. Now, it may some days only be 10 minutes that I jump into my 55 Ford Thunderbird, drive it down to the water and back, take a quick peek of the ocean, just to have that reminder, remembrance, and recollection, and then right back. If I was in New York City, I would take a minimum of 10 minutes a day and be a New York City tourist. I'd go downstairs right there on the water where Craig is and take a 10-minute vacation minimum a day, and vice versa. When I'm on activity I don't get paid for and I'm with my family in Tahiti, I still take a visit, minimum maybe 10 minutes a day, down to that business center at the St. Regis, and I get into the same kind of mode. You know, where am I going to have activity I get paid for today, even if it's a minimum of 10 minutes, because I know how energy aggregates, compounds, and accelerates. And I think I do want to, Sean, the one thing I want to compliment you on is there's a subtlety in what you said that a lot of people like you and I and Craig, we don't say. And 5 years ago, even though, you know, all the big coaching and all the bullshit that I do, people are like, I used to tell people, you can't take time off the grid. I literally believed you were hurting. I called it the zero effect. I'm like, if you, and what I have realized is this is only good for me, right? Try it out, adopt, adapt, change it around. But what has worked for me isn't necessarily like I have one of my big clients, he's taking a 6-week off, right? Off the grid, going to Costa Rica, probably doing ayahuasca and all kinds of other wild things. And he's going to take no minimum time in a business center. He especially shouldn't do it when he's on ayahuasca, but that's okay. And I got to tell you, as a coach of people thinking I know what I know, I don't know what I don't know. So I love when coaches and mentors and teachers say, hey, this is what my perception is. This is good for me. Try it out, see what works for you, mitigate your risk according to your time and risk tolerance.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think everybody reacts to things a little bit differently, right? For myself, any of the successes that I've noticed that probably the biggest thing I've learned over the last few years is to be able to communicate with myself. Obviously, communication with others is huge, but to be able to ask myself these questions, a lot of the times being like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I upset? Why am I distracted? And so a lot of these different types of systems that I put in place, like these micro wins and all these things, come from these conversations I've had with myself, right? And I feel it's a really important thing because some people might not react the exact same way that I do or you do to these micro wins or whatever it may be. But if you can ask yourself, like, why am I in a funk? have I got up? Have I moved? Have I done the things I'm supposed to do? Have I been moving forward? Or have the thought patterns and the things I've been saying to myself because I've been on vacation or I've had a issue or whatever, are those stopping me from moving forward? Am I just feeling bad for myself? Am I not progressing, right? So I think the conversation with yourself is a huge thing to really figure out, you know, which one of these tools you can really implement to kind of help you move forward.
100%. Yeah, this is so good. I have a question for both of you. I'll start with Sean. One of the things that I admire both of you for many reasons, but one of the things that I see you guys do so well is be a leader, but not only for your employees and your team, but also for your family. When you look at the great leaders in the world, they all have a little bit of a different approach. I'm sure there's some commonalities. Sean, I'll start with you. For you specifically, what is very important for you in the way that you show up to be a leader for both your employees and also your family?
So I think there's a couple things. First, I feel like I try to know what I don't know, or I try to realize what I don't know. Um, I feel like in many cases, um, as a leader, I have to understand my abilities and the lack of them, so I can put the right people in the right place and not overpromise and underdeliver. The other thing would be communication, but last and most important thing for me is I think it's leading by example. Um, in in the world that we're in today, there's a lot of leaders that I call managers, which just take it as a verbiage of how I use it, where they haven't earned their position, they were given their position. And being a leader, you're earning that role every single day. So even though technically you're the boss, um, I continuously ask myself, and this is when it comes to training and doing all the difficult things I like doing, am I somebody that I would want to follow? Am I somebody that I would want to be mentored by? Or am I just preaching and not doing the things that I'm saying that I would recommend doing? So I think those are probably communication, understanding my faults, and realizing that by no means am I perfect. There's lots of things I need to work on and improve on. And then also trying to be the leader that I would follow, are probably the three things in my family and everything else that come along with it.
I love those last ones. That was a nice nugget. Dave, how about you, handsome?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, one, knowing not only your values, but understanding what Sean said, just like your children, they do not listen to you, but they watch you. Your employees do not listen to you, but they watch you. And so if you live by your values, for me, it's gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and effective communication, which Sean touched on. And then secondarily, to shift the paradigm, no pun intended, for the paradigm shifter himself, Craig Siegel, you have to be, as a leader, an intelligent follower. And when I say that, you have to learn what people are listening for. Some people, they need Coach Lombardi, and some people need Barney the Purple Dinosaur as a leader. But you will not find out whether you need, Churchill or Barney the Dinosaur, Belichick or Barney the Dinosaur, unless you are an intelligent follower and you're listening for how you can be of service or value by asking questions like, would it help you if, and also, do you know anyone that could help me? And creating that community, whether it's in your personal or professional life, will elevate others and elevate yourself along with it as a real leader, a servant leader, one which is a compassionate capitalist in business, and one that shares their love first and then effectuates bringing the best out of people, giving them directions to where they are, and also teaching them things from the dummy tax that they've learned.
So good. Yeah. One final juicy nugget, I'll land the plane, Dave. I'm just curious. I don't think I've ever asked this on the show, Dave, but I want to start with Sean. I'm just curious. In the world we live in with social media and so forth, everybody's highlight reels, do you ever find or catch yourself looking around and maybe feeling a little bit of comparison syndrome? And if so, what do you do and how do you check yourself and let that go?
Oh, all the time. I'd be an absolute liar if I didn't. The reality is we naturally want to imitate. We want to feel good about ourselves. We want to hold ourselves up to a certain standard and compare ourselves. Like, these are all natural things that we want to do. And once again, it comes back to that communication with yourself. I think we all need to realize that most of what we see on social media is the best of their best, and half of it's not even real, if not more. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that even if it is real, it is not a competition. Everybody is in a different part of their own race, right? You may be at the starting line ready to go. It's not fair to compare yourself to somebody that already started running 20 minutes ago and is 4 laps ahead of you, right? So what I try to do is, if I look at somebody like David, if I'm looking at yourself, and I'm looking at these amazing human beings that have gone to a certain point, instead of catching myself up and beating myself down on like, hey, why am I not here? Why am I not doing this? I try to take inspiration from it and learn, what can I do to move to this? How can I learn from this? And then I also try to, just like when we're focusing on, David mentioned it earlier, really focusing on what we're doing at that time. I try to be very wary of who I follow. I try to only surround myself with the people that are doing the things I want to do, that I consider leaders. There's millions of people to follow out there. There's millions of coaches, but if you don't align yourself with those right group, I feel like you can take yourself down a path you don't want to go.
So good, man. Dave.
Yeah, I just have to admit, this morning I just had a Minutes and Moments episode of envy, jealousy, competitive comparison, and it's usually certain people. I like when I get into what is interfering with my potential, which is trying to compare myself and steal my joy. I see how long it takes me to appreciate that person, because obviously if I'm jealous of you or envious of you or comparing myself to you, then you must be the shit. Like you, right? I must think that you're, and remember, we're participating in a perception. Some people, it's weird. Like Gary Vaynerchuk and I are close friends. He jokes around and calls me his best friend. And I'm like, you got to get better best friends if I'm your best friend, buddy. But like, I have no jealousy or comparison to him. Just like I have no jealousy or comparison to Tom Brady. And I think it's because they're so far out of my realm that I can justify why somebody would hire Gary V instead of David Meltzer. But when we get to like Lewis House and Ed Milet and Tom Bilyeu in my peer group, where we all have comparatively, the same skill sets, and I always take note of those that I'm jealous of. I know Ed and I, like, we're close friends, but he's the guy that I most compare myself to because he's closest to my age. Obviously, he's a lot better looking than me, but I'm obviously a lot smarter than he is. So we all have our advantages. But I would tell you, like, I wake up whenever I see Ed, speaking somewhere. I'm like immediately like, hey, what was I doing that day? How come they didn't ask me? Even if I've keynoted the same event last year, I have an instant of jealousy and envy. And then I remind myself, that's why he's my friend, because I respect him that much to be jealous of him. And that's not going to get me there. That's going to steal my joy. Let me take that joy, instead of stealing it from me, and give it to Ed and give him his props, that I'm a huge fan of his, and that sometimes I get competitive because he is so good at what he does. And I want to make sure that I'm pushing myself as much as he pushes himself, and I respect him so much. So I think it's really for everyone. And I know Gary, I've had these conversations. For me, when it comes to branding in social media, right? He's the super cape of entrepreneurship. He's the one that everybody would want on their stage, and he gets competitive and very competitive, and he compares himself even to lessers that you'd be amazed. It would be like Tom Brady comparing himself to who knows, Donovan McNabb or someone out there that he obviously has the numbers to compare to. So man, just be healthy, compare yourself, but only spend minutes and moments, and then give back that joy to them, because they deserve it.
Amen. Beautifully said. Sean, love you, buddy. Always good to see you. Thank you for joining us for our community. Go check out all the awesome stuff that Sean is going on. He's the best. Dave, thank you as always. We'll see you next week for episode 130.
Yeah, Sean, I got a bunch of friends up there for you to meet. So I was just with them this week.
Let's do it. I look forward to it.
Great
Thank you so
people.
much, guys.
Actually,
Yep.
real quickly, Sean knows Joe Tolzman, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. That's how we met.
Yeah.
I think that might be who you're referring to, but I'm sure
Well,
there's
yeah.
more too.
I know I have another group. I was with Joe, obviously, this week in Vegas.
Yeah.
However, I ended up in a restoration keynote, thanks to Joe. But I have a whole circle from a different era as well that I introduced Joe to. So, you know, we spent a lot of time up there. So please reach out.
I will 100%. Thank you so much, guys. It was my honor to be on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Have
man.
a great weekend, guys. Love you
Go
guys.
take a
Take care.
vacation, Craig. Go outside. See you later.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Paradigm Shift episode 129 in the books. What an instant classic. Too much fun. We'll be back next weekend for episode 130. Did you guys grab the Wall Street Journal bestselling and USA Today, the Reinvention Formula? I hope you did. I believe so heartedly that there's so many nuggets in here that will help a lot of people in many different facets of life. Whether you just want to play bigger, level up, gain clarity, remove limiting beliefs, look at the world from a different perspective, work on your relationships, communication, sales, branding, and everything in between. Been a hell of a week this week. So blessed, so grateful, so excited that we're back here for episode 129. It's a big commitment, and a lot of people always ask me, like, what is the trick? How do you do what you do? But one thing that I can give you all right now is radical consistency. Decide, commit, and stay consistent, and watch great things happen. Kelly Siegel in the house, great to see you. It's actually a fresh air piece, Kel. I love you guys. We'll be back next week for episode 130. If you want a free Reinvent Your Life toolkit, drop the word book in the comments. Love you guys.